President Biden is set to make remarks on the coronavirus and vaccinations later today from the White House, following a briefing from COVID-19 response team. And this comes after the president failed to reach his 4th of July goal to vaccinate 70% of U.S. adults. On Sunday, he touted the country's success in vaccinations thus far, but then stopped short of declaring victory over the virus.
Today, we are closer than ever to declaring our independence from a deadly virus. That's not to say the battle against COVID-19 is over. We've got a lot more work to do.
So for the latest from the White House, let us bring in Nancy Cordes. Nancy, thanks for joining us. The Delta variant of the coronavirus remains pretty much the top issue when it comes to this pandemic. With just over 47% of American adults fully vaccinated, where does the administration go from here? What is the plan?
Well, the plan is that they say they're going to have to start focusing more on challenges in local communities, in particular states, rather than having a blanket overall national strategy. A White House official just told me this morning, with the vaccination rate as high as it is nationwide now, 67% or 68%, somewhere around there, of U.S. adults having at least one shot, that it just isn't effective to try to come up with big national campaigns. What needs to happen, the White House is arguing, is an increased focus on states with higher rates of vaccine hesitancy, higher rates, therefore, of COVID itself. It's why the White House established these surge teams to go into those states to work with local officials on strategies that they know work best. Face-to-face communication with people who are hesitant about getting the vaccine, surging in additional testing and contact tracing in states like Missouri that are seeing increases in COVID outbreaks. In fact, the state of Missouri has appealed to the White House to send more resources as they try to combat a rise in cases and a rise in hospitalizations. And so what we're going to hear from the president later today when he speaks is not some big, brand new national strategy, but rather a commitment to try to beef up what they feel works right now, which is a focus on local communities and not some kind of renewal of a federal mask mandate, because White House officials believe that a lot of people, the people who have been resistant to getting the vaccine, are the same people who have been resistant to wearing a mask as well.
So meanwhile, the White House and Congress are prioritizing work on two major items on the president's legislative agenda: the bipartisan infrastructure bill and a budget revolution. Not a revolution, but a resolution. What do we know about efforts behind the scenes to move both of those bills forward?
Well, those efforts have sort of quieted down over the past week. Obviously, it's been a holiday weekend. Before that, Congress was not in session. Not much tends to get done when lawmakers aren't here. So that's now going to rev up again as Congress comes back to Washington. And the White House is really going to have to try to keep this very fragile bipartisan coalition on infrastructure together. It's one thing, Anne Marie, to come up with a framework that the White House and these lawmakers, these 10 Democratic and Republican senators say they can support. It's another thing to actually put that into legislative language. There are all kinds of hitches and hiccups that can take place. One senator saying, well, that's not exactly what I agreed to. We're going to have to tweak that. And then somebody else has a problem once it gets tweaked. So, it is significant that they were able to come to an agreement in principle over a $1 trillion or so infrastructure package. But now the rubber meets the road as the bipartisan group has to craft this legislation. And then the White House has to keep all of its various Democratic coalitions on board with whatever that bipartisan group comes up with, because we know that there are progressives who are frustrated, who wanted that package to be bigger, wanted to include a lot more. And so they're working on another big supplemental package of all the infrastructure measures that didn't make it into the bipartisan deal. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And I think this is the month, July, where we're really going to see if the White House, Democrats and Republicans in Congress can pull this off.
So, last topic, looking overseas now. U.S. troops and NATO allies continue withdrawing from Afghanistan. The Biden administration has a September 11th deadline for that. We are seeing, though, increasing gains by Taliban forces in the region. And increasingly, there is concern that once the U.S. pulls out completely, the Afghan government may not be able to hold on to power very much longer after that. Is there any talk within the administration of reconsidering its counterterrorism strategy in Afghanistan?
Not that we have picked up yet, Anne-Marie, but you're right that this is a big area of concern. Republicans have been arguing that if Afghanistan slips back into chaos, that this White House is going to own that failure. Of course, the Trump administration was also pushing to remove all troops from Afghanistan, but it is the Biden administration that is carrying that out, that has closed Bagram Air Base and pulled all of the U.S. troops out of the air base. And the president has been asked, well, are you going to provide air support to help the Afghan government? And what he has said is that they'll support the Afghan troops who are providing air cover, but it really does appear that this White House is still on track to remove all U.S. troops from the country by September 11th, and they're, and turning that back around would be very difficult, if not impossible, after the U.S. has made that commitment. And it appears that even President Biden himself knows that this is an incredibly sticky situation, because when he was asked about it repeatedly by reporters at the end of last week, he got frustrated and said, I don't want to talk about negative things. I only want to talk about positive things. We're going into the 4th of July, and I'll address all of your negative questions next week. It clearly was a topic that he didn't want to dwell on because there are no easy answers.
Yeah, well, characterizing it as negative suggests it's not going as well as, hoped. Nancy Cordes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.